So, yeah, we're going to talk about little Jack and little Lily and the total lack of progress. So this, for those of you who don't know, so this happened in Nova Scotia in Canada. Jack, who was 4 at the time, but he has turned 5 now, and Lily, who's 6, 2 siblings, just disappeared out of their backyard, basically, in a sort of remote-ish property in Nova Scotia. 1 minute they could be heard playing, talking, next minute it all went quiet and they were gone. And not really any people saying there's traces, but there are boot prints, and there was bits of a blanket found, but then there's a lot of speculation that they might have been planted. Basically this happened quite a long time ago now, quite a few months ago, 6 months I think, and there's been no progress in this case, or certainly no official progress. There's been searches made, they've had the cadaver dogs out, many searches, because there's like a wooded area around. Now, apparently Jack had gone missing once before, hadn't he? He'd ran away. Sometimes kids do run away or go on an adventure and get lost. Just seems funny that for 2 to disappear like this, but of course, might have been one egging the other one on, and the official sort of narrative from the Canadian police at the moment is that they wandered off and something's befallen them. Either someone's taken them off or they had an accident and they're still in that wooded area somewhere. But of course, suspicion has fallen, as it always does in these kind of cases, with the mother, Malaya, and the stepfather, Daniel. Now, what I just wanted to talk about today, because as I was watching all these videos just last night when I couldn't sleep, one of the videos I was watching was from DT, Drunk Turkey, and he was talking quite a lot about the neighbours. So the thing is, Daniel and Malaya, the parents, or the mum and the stepdad, they have another baby. They have a baby, Meadow, and they say everybody went to bed at 9 o'clock. Though Malaya said that Daniel was still awake when she went to bed, and she didn't know what time he went to sleep, blah, 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 blah. But the neighbours say, 2 of the neighbours say that somebody was driving around that Thursday night before the kids went missing on the Friday morning. Somebody was driving around the area, and Brad Wong, one of the neighbours, he has said it was definitely Daniel. But then he apparently said to the other neighbour, it was that the other neighbour only heard a vehicle, didn't notice whose vehicle it was. And apparently this Brad Wong said to him that it was Daniel. And the other thing I'd like to know is, where is Daniel's brother in all this? Because he lived on this property as well. On that property where these children disappeared from, there was Malaya, Daniel's brother, and Daniel's mother. There were 4 adults living on that property, and these children disappeared. Seems odd to me. And I say, why is Daniel's brother never really mentioned? Anyway, so what I just want to talk about is what's the reason why, if Brad Wong is wrong, sorry about that, Wong is wrong, about it being Daniel who was driving around, because then the police came out and said, no, we have no evidence that it was Daniel that was driving around. We have, they didn't say it wasn't Daniel. They just said they have nothing to say that it was him. It was that sort of comment. So if that's true, what the police say, that it wasn't Daniel and it can't be proven it was Daniel, why would Brad say that? This is my question, is like, why Why would the neighbours say it was Daniel if it wasn't? And he said categorically it was Daniel. So I got thinking about it, and there are, you know, what happens sometimes in cases of missing people or even murder cases. People do phone up and say, like, say it's a poor girl who's gone missing and then been found murdered. People ring up and say, oh, that's my ex-husband, he confessed to it. Sometimes they say things like that to get them out of the way. You know, if they're going for an acrimonious divorce or whatever, and they'll phone up the police and say that they, you know, it was their ex who did it, just to get them out of the way. You know, and that these do happen. So when the police ask for information, it's difficult because sometimes people ring up with false information, deliberately false. Sometimes it's not, you know, people will ring up and say, oh, I think I saw them. It's, you know, sometimes it's just like you know, they're people trying their best to help, but, you know, they report a sighting that turns out not to be the person or whatever. But sometimes they ring up deliberately and say, you know, oh, my ex did it, or my ex is involved. And I just wondered that about Brad. You know, what's the relationship? What's the relationship between the neighbours? Does he not like Daniel for whatever reason? Just let me put, I've got a picture of these little ones somewhere. Yeah, maybe he doesn't like Daniel, and he sees, you know, because neighbours, especially in areas like that, where you might not have many neighbours, but quite often there's a lot of friction between them. And maybe he's seen an opportunity to get his own back on Daniel for something. Do you think? Is that a possibility? So it'd be like if you want your neighbour taken away because you don't want them to be your neighbour anymore, for whatever reason, could be all sorts of reasons. You might have fallen out with them. Is he just trying to stir things up so that Daniel gets into trouble with the police? Or does he think it was Daniel? Or maybe did he actually see there it was Daniel? This is what I'd just like to know. What is behind this? What is behind this? If it's not true, as the police say, that they can't confirm it was Daniel who is riding around the area, and there's two neighbours say they heard it, but there was Brad who said definitely it was Daniel, but the police are saying no, we've got no evidence of that. So why would Brad do that if it wasn't true? You know, do you see what I mean? It's something, it's niggling at me. Why would he say that? Is he got a grudge against Daniel and he's just trying to stir things up for him? Or was it Daniel and the police are just not wanting it to be out in the open that it was Daniel? So yeah, the Nova Scotia, oh no, can't use that, trying to. So Jack and Lily were missing have been missing from the 2nd of May this year. So do you know what? That's a pretty miserable Christmas in that household, isn't it? Now, the other thing that DT was saying last night in his video was that he'd heard, or someone, you know, these are all rumours, like nothing's confirmed, that Malaya was getting help. And we don't even know what that means. I mean, getting help, does that mean she's under a psychologist? You know, some people think Malaya, the mother, was involved in the disappearance of Jack and Lily. And now, then her other child, Meadow, the child that she's got with Daniel, has been taken off her, and she can only have supervised visits. So you're talking about, that's going to be pretty rough, isn't it? You're talking about, you know, someone that in April this year, a woman who was the mother of 3 children, and now 2 of them have disappeared and the other one's been taken off her. So I wouldn't imagine, any way or another, that she's in a very good mentally, very good mental state, really. And according, I've looked at their Facebooks and things, it seems like last year they probably had a nice Christmas, or it looks like it. Of course, you can never tell on social media, can you? Let's have a look if I can find the photos from Christmas last year. So it's so very sad, isn't it? I mean, these two little kids, it doesn't seem likely that they are still on this planet. I can't see how they can be unless they have actually been abducted, They can't be still, well, they can't have, they certainly can't have sustained themselves. Now, well, she hasn't updated her Facebook since July, but I just want to show you last year's Christmas on there. I do feel for Malaya, especially if, I don't know if Malaya had anything to do with the disappearance of Jack and Lily. I just don't know. But so this was from the 5th of December last year. And there's Jack and Lily with the tree and Meadow in the middle looking at the tree. It's a beautiful photo, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful photo. Now what a difference a year makes. So now we are coming up to Christmas again. Jack and Lily are God knows where. And Meadow's, in care. So very sad. I will be doing some sort of a video because all the missing person cases that we look at, especially the children ones, coming up to Christmas now, it'd be tough for the parents one way or another. Even if they're the ones, if they know what's happened to them, it still won't be easy. I know a lot of people are down on Malaya. I can't be down on her because I have no idea what happened to Jack and Lily. Same with Daniel. We have to presume that the police have investigated everything and nobody's been arrested. So, wouldn't there be some trace of these children if they had come to foul play at the hands of their parents? Wouldn't there be some residual evidence? Because they were seen on CCTV the night before, weren't they? So they were definitely still alive then. And then the next day, by 9, 10, 11, when the police turned up, they disappeared. So if there was a car driving around trying to dispose of evidence, or where are their bodies? I know there's probably lots of places that, if they'd come to foul play, there's probably lots of places that could have been hidden. But of course, the police will have looked into all that. I just don't know. But this picture is haunting, isn't it? So this was coming up to Christmas last year. These two little mites and their little sister Meadow sat in front of the Christmas tree. And now look at this year. Jack and Lily, God knows where, and Meadow is in care, bless her. And I presume she's got a foster parent. Maybe she is with a family. I hope so. So no wonder Malaya's going through a bad time. If it's true that she's getting help, I mean, we don't know what that means. Does it mean she's, in hospital, or is she getting a psychiatrist, or how is she coping? Because not only her children have disappeared and her baby's been taken away from her. Everybody, she's getting a lot of hate, of course, because a lot of people think she's responsible or knows what happened. So, yeah, very sad. But anyway, really what I wanted to talk about was what I've talked about. What would Brad Wong's motives be to say that it was Daniel that was driving around, disputed by the police, who were saying, no, there's no evidence of that. And to me, the only reason why Brad might say it if it wasn't true is if there was some dispute between them and he's just trying to stir it up. Or, of course, you know, the other alternative is, does he know what happened to Jack and Lily and he's trying to deflect the attention to somebody else, because that happens. I remember another Christmas case in the UK. Do you remember the poor girl who was killed by her neighbour? And then, oh, what was that? Joanne, she was called. And it happened at Christmas. Her boyfriend was away. A neighbour killed her and then tried to cast shade on the landlord. And he got hung, drawn and quartered by the press, didn't he? And I need to find the full names. Because he was a bit of an oddball. Yeah, Christopher Jeffries. Let's have a look. Let's put this. So, yeah, this poor girl, Joanne, was attacked and murdered by her neighbour, Victor Tabernacle or something. He was called Victor something. There he is. There's the neighbour. And it was him that had killed Joanna Yates. But he cast shade on Joanna's landlord because he was a little bit of an oddball. And Chris Jeffries, you know, and so the press just hounded him. And I think he was arrested in the end, but of course, he didn't do it anyway. And in the end, they did find the real killer. And Christopher wrote a book, and there was a play made about a TV documentary, etc. And he changed his image a bit. He cut his hair, and he looks quite different now. I can't find a recent picture of him. But what I'm trying to say is, sometimes people do that, you know. When they're the perpetrator, they try and make it look like somebody else has done it, don't they? So is that what Brad Wong's done? I don't know. I have no clue. Honestly, Jack and Lily's case is such a mystery, a bit like the Gus Lamont case, which there is no more information about. I've checked up on that this morning. Absolute mysteries that children can just disappear with hardly leaving any trace. Can't imagine it. But now here we are coming up to Christmas. Just awful for these families, isn't it? Okay, so that's what I wanted to say. I'll be back really soon. I might have actually done something with my hair by then. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you really soon in the next video. We'll have a few candles, I think, because although Jack and Lily officially, you know, are not dead, but you can't see it being any other way. But hello, baby. Look, the dog's come up now. She knows. So, yeah, for Jack and Lily, who else? So all Hughes victims, candles, prayers. That's all we can do. We can't do much, but we can pray. We can pray, can't we? So, and you know what? Doesn't do any harm, does it? Might not, you know, make a difference in a lot of ways, but it definitely doesn't do any harm. So I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, just putting my little Christmas things up. May your God go with you. Thank you.